As the conflict in Gaza intensifies, a public warning from the United States. Israel needs to do more to protect Palestinian civilians.
If you have an opportunity to alleviate the pain, you should do it, period. And if you don't, you're going to lose credibility worldwide.
My guest this week from Israel is Ayalon, former head of the Shin Bet, the country's internal security service. Will Israel heed the US warning?
If somebody can advise us not what not to do, but how to destroy the military capability of Hamas without human suffering, I am ready to listen to every advice.
So what happens next? Does Israel's government have a plan for the future? And can anything good be salvaged once this war is over? Ayalon, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Thank you for the invitation.
You said last month that if Israel went ahead with a ground invasion of Gaza, many Israeli soldiers and many more Palestinians would die. Is there a point, in your view, at which the human price of this war, as it's being fought, becomes too high for you, for Israel?
No, because of two reasons. I never knew how to measure human life, and I cannot compare it to any military achievement. So I never could give an honest answer to this question.
But does it worry you?
Yes, it is. But it worried me since from the very first day. So, and you asked me about something that for me, I have to try to measure human life and what will be on the other side. So the concept of victory, which is very unclear today, should be measured by human life. It's something that I find very, very difficult to do. I'm ready to speak about the goal of this military campaign or the goal of what we are doing today, but I cannot give you an honest answer to measure this goal with human life.
Let me put it another way. Are you comfortable with first the total blockade of Gaza and then the meager humanitarian supplies that are being allowed to trickle into the Strip? I ask because I wonder what the military value is of cutting off food, medicine and water to Gaza civilians.
In order to measure or to evaluate what we are doing, I cannot tell you an honest answer when you ask me or when you want me to measure it in human life. But I can tell you what we are trying to achieve, and I think, I believe, and I totally believe that you will agree with me, that the less civilians will be killed when we are trying to achieve our goal, the concept of victory will give us any sense. So what we are trying to do now is to destroy the military wing and the military capability of Hamas, which means Al-Qadim al-Qassam. And I believe that this is the only way for us to create a reality in which both Israelis and Palestinians will be able to live in a totally different reality.
But you're suggesting that the methods that Israel is using at the moment are justified because of the end goal. Is that right?
No. Well, I left the military community 30 years ago, and I left the Shin Bet, which is the intelligence community, 25 years ago. So I'm not sure that I'm in a position to advise to our military generals exactly what to do. All what I can say is that I think that one of the major parameters should be to kill as less as possible civilians and to make sure that everybody, including Israelis, people who are living in Britain, Europe, America, will understand that we shall do everything in order to achieve this goal, and to remind, especially to you, people who are living outside, that Hamas will do everything in order to use his people as a human shield. So it is a totally asymmetric conflict and asymmetric way that we measure human life.
Your President Herzog, said on October the 13th, it's an entire nation out there that is responsible. He was talking about the Gazans. It's not true, this rhetoric that civilians were not aware, not involved. They could have risen up. They could have fought this evil regime. Do you go along with that?
No, I totally disagree. Hamas was not elected by the people who live in Gaza. Hamas took over by Fatah people and Palestinian Authority, security people. So I totally disagree. I think that we have to emphasize something which is totally different from what I understand our president said. We do not have war with the Palestinian people. We do not have war with the innocent Palestinians who are living in Gaza. They hate Hamas. Hamas, before this war, got support from between 25 to 30% of the Palestinians who are living under his control. So, and they do not have the power. Hamas is using his military power not only against us. So our enemy is Hamas. By the way, that it's behave like ISIS. They left the concept of persuasion and dawah that he came with when he was born during the 70s and the 80s. They are killing civilians like ISIS. So our goal is to destroy the military capability of Azzedine al-Qassam, of Hamas, and not to kill Palestinians. We do not have war with the Palestinian people.
And if you inflict tremendous hardship on those Palestinian people in the course of fighting Hamas, that's just collateral damage, is it? That's just what you've got to accept.
It's not, I hate the idea of collateral damage. I think that, we kill people, but we are trapped. I don't want to tell you what you Europeans did in Afghanistan and Iraq. For me, it's irrelevant. But at least I know most of the generals in the IDF. I know them, and I know that they will do everything in order to avoid what you call collateral damage, and I say or I call the killing of civilians, and that's it. But we are cornered because the reality in which on one side of what we call border living Israelis, and on the other side of the border Hamas control the Palestinians is unacceptable anymore. We were stupid enough in order not to see it. And probably we made many mistakes, and I blame my prime minister, and I still blame him for, creating Hamas to the level of evil that we see today. But we cannot go to the past and to discuss our mistakes. We did mistakes. But for our problem today is how to fight Hamas. And yes, I do agree that we have to say again and again and again, our enemy are not the Palestinian people. And this is why I say to the Israelis, not all of them, agree with me, unless we shall speak not on the military goal. We are speaking all the way on military achievement, military goal, unless we shall define a political goal. Victory is not measured in military terms. The political goal should be to revive the concept of two states. It will take years, but the concept, we have to create a different story to what we are doing today. And the story should be, we are doing today because we are fighting. It's not a war of revenge. It's a war in order to defend our people.
How worried are you that, having raised the issue of humanitarian hardship with Israel in private, America is now airing significant concerns in public? And I wonder, can the Israeli government afford to ignore those concerns? Antony Blinken, the Secretary of State, said just last week, while Israel has the right to defend itself, the way it does so matters. It means food, water, medicine, and other humanitarian assistance must be able to flow into Gaza and to the people who need them. Israel doesn't seem to be taking too much concern with that stricture.
Well, I totally agree, but I would raise the last sentence that Israel do not really care. I agree that humanitarian issue, meaning human suffering and people, innocent people dying. Yes, we have to take it in account. We cannot measure it. But I don't think that you didn't mention the people, the Israelis, who are being hostages in the hands of Hamas. I think that we will not be able to measure the concept of victory without measuring human life and without bringing back the Israelis who were kidnapped, children, elderly, and innocent people who are suffering now in the hand of Hamas.
President Biden said on his way back from Israel, "I was very blunt with the Israelis. Israel has been badly victimized, but the truth is that if they have an opportunity to relieve suffering of people who have nowhere to go, that is what they should do." That's a really blunt public warning, isn't it?
I think that he emphasized exactly, and I totally agree, that we have to keep in mind and we have to try to do to avoid as much as we can the human suffering.
Do you think Israel is doing that?
I think that we are trying to do it, and I said, and I will repeat it again and again and again. If somebody can advise us not what not to do, but how to destroy the military capability of Hamas without human suffering, I am ready to listen to every advice. But what is happening, people, tend to forget the violence and the cruelty that we faced exactly 1 month ago, when women were raped and children were assassinated. And every time when we are blamed for human suffering, yes, I'm ready to listen to every advice, how to destroy the military capability of Hamas without doing it.
You once talked in a film called The Gatekeepers, 2012. Yes. You talked about what happens when large numbers of people start being killed through targeted assassinations. You said, suddenly the processes become a kind of conveyor belt. You ask yourself less and less where to stop. And I ask you, is that what has been happening with Israeli attacks in Gaza, a conveyor belt approach?
No, it's let's what I said on 2012, or I don't remember exactly when, is totally true. I think that we did many mistakes. I think that we did many mistakes when we did not understand the Palestinian people. And in a way, I totally agree that our mistakes, created or did not stop the phenomena of Hamas the way we see it today. But we are discussing the past. And the past, with all our mistakes and their mistakes, will not help us now, because we are fighting now against something that we cannot accept its existence. And what I'm trying to explain is that we should not forget the mistakes of the future, but we have to start by designing the future. And the future should be to revive the idea, the concept, and the process that will create the reality of two states, instead of trying to explain us how to behave on the military campaign.
Mr. Ayalon, what comes next? President Biden has said there has to be a vision of what comes next. You've talked about reviving the idea of a two-state solution, giving the Palestinians a political perspective. Do you see any sign of that vision from your government, or is the war it, as far as they're concerned?
No, it's first of all, I don't see it when I listen to our, cabinet ministers. But I want to be very honest with you. I do not listen to them, but I see the change. And finally, you have to understand, Israel, with all our mistakes, is still a great democracy, and we saw it not today. We see it not today. We saw it during the last 6 months, and this is why I look and I see when I meet people in the street. And I'll give you one example. The example is, Israelis were asked about 2 weeks ago, who should replace Hamas when the vacuum in Gaza will be created, assuming that it will be created. Between 70 to 80% of the Israelis said it should be Palestinian Authority. Now, you couldn't hear it a month ago.
But you're not hearing that from the government, are you? The government has now said it's going to take over security control of Gaza afterwards. No political perspective.
The problem is that you listen to our ministers and I listen to the Israelis. And let me tell you something, this government is over. They don't know it yet, probably, but this government is over. You know why? Because we are a democracy. And when hundreds of thousands of soldiers will come back from this campaign, they will not go back home. They will go to the streets and they will demand this prime minister and this cabinet minister to disappear from our life. And this is, if there is hope, in order to listen to hope, to see the hope, you shouldn't listen to our ministers. You shouldn't listen to our government. You should try to understand the Israelis. And this is what you will hear from the Israeli people.
You talk about a two-state solution, and I'm wondering where you put those two states, because Israel has already said the Jewish people have exclusive rights to the land contained within your current borders, or words to that effect. So de facto annexation has already taken place, hasn't it? What does that leave? What does that leave for the Palestinians?
You are asking a question which is based on totally wrong assumptions. I think that only between 10 to 15% of the Israelis accept the concept of annexation. And even these people, many of them are doing it because what we learned after Oslo, when we were looking for security, we got terror and intifada.
But as you pointed out at the time that the Palestinians who wanted a state got settlements, didn't they?
Exactly.
That's all they got from wanting a state.
No, it's not. We can change it. We can change, and the only way to change the way we understand ourselves is to change the way to understand the future. And this is the role of the Israeli society. But let me tell you something. This is the role of everybody, because it is not only a conflict between Palestinians and Israelis anymore. It is a regional conflict and will destabilize even probably, the global stability. Because let me remind you that the energy from the Persian Gulf, is a vital for India and China. And if China will enter, so everything is different. So I think that it became the interest of Britain, of Europe, America, and everybody who care about stability. And this is why it is not only our goal, it should be the goal of everybody who care. And it is in our hands to change the perspective in which we see the future. And once people will believe that it is achievable, and this is exactly what we saw during the 90s. Once people will believe that it is achievable, they will support it.
If you look at what's going on in the West Bank, the settler violence against Palestinians that has been reported and commented on by President Biden recently, that doesn't give much cause for optimism, does it? He said this violence and the settlers responsible had to be held accountable and the violence had to stop. Do you think the people who've been committing these violence, forcing Palestinians out of their homes and their villages in the West Bank, will be held to account?
I cannot tell you exactly what will happen, but I totally agree with President Biden. I think that I cannot tell you, but I do believe, I know what minority among the settlers are doing today in the West Bank is a Jewish terror. And I totally disagree with what they do. And I think that it is our responsibility, Israeli responsibility, to stop them. And if you ask me whether we are doing all what we should, I will tell you no. I think that we should do much more. And until it will stop, yes, we are accountable. And they should be accountable.
You've spent a lifetime dealing in facts. How do you rate the chances of anything good emerging from this terrible war?
Let me tell you something about what happened on the 7th of October. Everything collapsed. The way we understand ourselves, the way we understand our enemies, the way we understand our friends, the way we understand the world. And we shall have to build Israel from the very beginning. But one thing that collapsed is all the rational concepts in which we understand ourselves and take decisions. So I used to think that, if I have to face a problem, I have to try to measure. First of all, to look for the details and the factors, and then to measure and to create scenarios. Everything became irrelevant. And if I cannot tell you what will be the reasonable scenario in the near future or in the far future, so I'm not going to deal with it. The only way for me, and many people tell me that I'm naive. I'm not naive. I'm realistic, because in a reality of chaos, the only way to get out is to say, okay, I will jump into the future and I will describe Israel in 40 years from now.
We mentioned the film, The Gatekeepers, that you and other former heads of Shin Bet talked about successes and failures during your time in service. But there were two statements that stood out. This was in 2012. One was from Carmi Gillen, who said that we Israelis, he said, are making the lives of millions unbearable. And from Avraham Shalom, who remarked, we have become cruel to ourselves as well, but mainly to the occupied population. Did you agree with those statements in 2012? And if so, do you still agree with them?
Yes, I totally agree. We made every mistake. The only way to understand is to ask, how come? Why did we do it? And we did it because we lost confidence in achieving security, because we did mistakes, but Palestinians did mistakes as well. And you mentioned, and you are totally right, there are two conflicting narratives. We see only our narrative. They see only their narrative. And the only people who can see both narratives are sitting in London, in America, and in a different planet. And this is your role to help us. If you really care about us, yes, tell us our mistakes, but tell Palestinians their mistakes and help us to see each other.
Ami Ayalon, thank you very much for being on Conflict Zones. Good to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.